Alright, last video about fractions. We just have to uh, make a couple points about fractions and multiplicity, and we'll see what that means. So, in general, changing denominators of fractions is an important idea. You can change, basically, two fractions can be written differently and represent the exact same number. 1/2 and 2/4 are the exact same number. They're two different ways of writing the exact same number. And changing fractions to have different denominators was important for understanding a lot of things. It was understanding, we remember, for understanding how fraction addition works. Fraction addition works because any two given fractions with mismatched denominators, like 1/2 and 1/3, well, we can change them both to have a common denominator, 3/6 and 2/6, and now it's more clear how to add 3/6 and 2/6. We should just add the numerators because we're combining counts of sixths. And it also helped us understand fraction division, just like it was easier to understand how two fractions with a common denominator are added together. It's easier to understand how two fractions with a common denominator should be divided properly. What is a fourth divided by a third? I'm not sure, but if we change it to a 3/12 divided by 4/12, well, that's a little bit easier to understand. It should be the same as 3 divided by 4, which is the same as 3/4. In other words, a fourth divided by a third is 3/4 because of this explanation. Remember, 3 divided by 4 is the same as 3/4. And the reason why 3/12 divided by 4/12 is the same as 3 divided by 4, because we're just dividing counts of twelfths, and it's all proportional. Here's kind of the visualization of a fourth is 3/12 and a third is 4/12. If we look around the circle, there's 12 of these little wedges, and a fourth is 3 of them. If we cut up our pizza into twelfths, a quarter is 3 slices. Right, yeah, so we get a common denominator. Okay, so an important thing to notice, the common denominator of 2 and 3, we changed 2 and 1/2 and 1/3 to have a common denominator, and that common denominator was a common multiple of both 2 and 3. So this is pretty important in general. Like, possible common denominators of two fractions have a lot to do with common multiples, multiplicity in general. One strategy for getting a common denominator of two fractions for two different fractions is to multiply each to get the least common denominator. And in general, so the general fact that this video is trying to explain is that in general we can only change a fraction's denominator to be a multiple or a factor of that denominator. For example, we can turn quarters into eighths because 3/4, you can get an equivalent fraction by multiplying top and bottom by 2. 3 over 4 is the same as 3 times 2 over 4 times 2 is the same as 6 over 8. And so 8, kind of the important thing here is that 8 is a multiple of 4 because 8 is equal to 4 times 2. So in general, this is the only way to get equivalent fractions. Multiply or divide top and bottom by the same number. And so all possible equivalent fractions are going to have a denominator that's either a factor or multiple of the original fraction's denominator. I think we kind of understood this intuitively, but it's worth saying out loud. Yeah, so it's possible to change quarters into eighths because 8 is a multiple of 4. 8 is 4 times 2, so we just multiply top and bottom of that, the fraction in terms of fourths, by 2 to get eighths. And so we can always turn fourths into eighths, whatever that fraction is, 3/4, 5/4, 10/4, just multiply top and bottom by 2, and you'll turn it into eighths, right? But kind of going the other direction, it's slightly different, right? 9/12, well, we are able to turn twelfths into quarters in this case because 9/12 divide top and bottom by the same number, what do you get? You get 3/4. So it was possible to turn this fraction in terms of twelfths, 9/12 into quarters, because top and bottom were both divisible by 3, and 3 is the number you need to divide by to get from 12 to 4. But this isn't all. But 7/12 is a little bit different. We cannot turn, by comparison, 7/12 cannot be turned into quarters. If we wanted to turn 7/12 into quarters, we would have to divide top and bottom by 3, because 3 is the number you need to divide 12 by to get to 4, but 7 is not divisible by 3. This is just not going to work. 3 is not a factor of 7. Therefore, 7/12 can't be turned into fourths. So basically, a given denominator, you can get any multiple you want, but any factors you can only do in certain cases, right? Here's a visualization. A 7th can be turned into 14ths because 14 is a multiple of 7. So here's a 7th, and here's a pizza cut up into 14 slices. You cut up your pizza into 14 slices, a 7th is 2 slices. In other words, a 7th is an even number of 14ths because 14 is a multiple of 7. Kind of think that multiplicity relation in your head. Like, if one is a multiple of the other, then one fraction can be made a fraction in terms of the other. And for example, and also to see an example of a fraction that can't be made into another fraction, here's a visualization of that. 7ths cannot be made into 9ths. Here's a pizza cut up into 9 slices, and 7 is not an even number of 9ths. It's not 1/9, it's not 2/9, it's not 3/9. It's just not an even number of 9ths. In fact, actually, how many 9ths is a 7th? Well, that would be a 7th divided by a 9th. Hold up. Yeah, it would be a 7th divided by a 9th, right? Which is the same thing as multiplying by 9/1, 9/7. So in terms of these 9ths, these 9th slices, these slices of pizza that are a 9th of a pizza, a 7th is 9/7 of those, which is 1 2/7. One 2/7 slices of pizza. We're thinking about also.